the table where most of the paintbrushes and the can and all that stuff was. And the argument, again, escalated, and she just simply reached down and grabbed the can of mineral spirits and chucked it at my face. She threw it at my face, and it struck me right at the bridge of the nose, sort of the forehead, bridge of the nose area. And it hurt.
Who else was around when this happened?
Well, thankfully, my children and Lily Rose's boyfriend were over towards the cafe. At that point, I didn't know that anyone else was around or had witnessed anything. I thought it was just Amber and I, but apparently there are 4 staff who work on the island.
I don't think it's hearsay. I don't think any statements yet. You can go ahead and continue your answer, sir.
Okay.
Sorry, the staff that work on your island, Mr. Depp?
Yeah. So there are indeed 4 staff who work on the island and live there all year round, who take care of everything, and 2 of them happened to be in that area and witnessed the violence.
I'll sustain as to, unless you can lay a foundation how he would know
Certainly.
that if it was not hearsay.
Mr. Depp, how do you know that these staff members witnessed part of this altercation?
These people, as I said, they're staff on the island, though I consider them family and very dear to me. And I believe it is mutual. I've known them a very long time. They were visibly shaken by what they'd witnessed.
Objection.
Again, if you can lay a foundation, if he saw them there, or if this is something they
Mr.
told
Depp,
them.
did you see any of these individuals shortly after you had this altercation with Ms. Heard?
No, that's not the proper. Did he see them as actually there? If he didn't, if it was something they told him, then it's hearsay.
Mr. Depp, did you see any of your staff members at the house when you and Ms. Heard had that altercation?
Once Miss Heard had stormed off, I sort of sat there dazed and confused for a few minutes, and then I walked around the house, and I saw Tara and...
That's fine. Okay, I'll sustain the objection. We'll move on.
You mentioned Tara. Who's Tara?
Tara's the manager of the island.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to discuss April 2016 now. When is Ms. Heard's birthday?
22nd of April.
And in 2016, how was Ms. Heard celebrating her birthday?
We'd set up a dinner for her, which was, she wanted to have a dinner with all her friends, and Josh, Drew, Rocky's boyfriend, who was some sort of chef, he asked her what she would like for him to cook. That's hearsay, I guess.
Yes. Go ahead. I'm not just sure if it's offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
He got it. That was
Okay, all right, well, then.
I'm learning.
There you go.
Let me put it a different way. Mr. Drew, who was a chef, which I don't believe is hearsay, Mr. Drew had made Mexican food Ms. Heard's favorite. Is that better?
And what were you doing that day before Ms. Heard's birthday celebration?
I had been in a room for many, many hours with a group of accountants, new accountants, and they were going through essentially the situation that I was in financially, which was a real shock to me. I had no idea, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but I prefer to think of the work as opposed to how much I'm getting paid. So I had no idea how much money I'd made. I just didn't. I just figured if I was working, there was money, so everything would be all right. They informed me that I had been, well, that quite an inordinate amount of sum of money had been was gone. It had disappeared, and after having worked 30-something years in the industry, I'm sorry, I could hear Ms. Brett.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was pretty shocked at where I was to learn I was exactly financially. And it was a very long meeting. And I knew, of course, that Ms. Heard's birthday dinner was to start at, I believe, 8:30. And I texted her a number of times from the meeting saying, this is probably going to go long, and I think I might be a little late. I'm sorry, but it's, you know, important, and I'm going to be a bit late for the dinner. And I apologized all over the place, and so when I left and picked up something at the house, which I believe was her gift, on the way downtown, I received a text from Ms. Heard asking me to bring, asked if I could bring some wine and some weed. And I texted back, sure. And then by the time I got to, arrived at Penthouse 5 for the party, I was about an hour and 40 minutes late, maybe, something like that.
Before you arrived, how many drinks had you had?
Oh, I think I'd had a glass of wine with, there was one bottle of wine that Ed White had brought to the meeting that we'd, between, I don't know how many, 5 or 6 of us, we had a glass of wine.
Could you tell the jury who Ed White is?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Ed White was my, at the time, he was my new business manager. And he was quite a, he was quite a professional, you know, nearly forensic business manager, and he had shown me things that from my former business managers that were quite disturbing.
Hearsay.
I believe he said he showed him.
Yes, I looked at papers. Maybe they're hearsay papers, I don't know.
Yeah,
I believe he was being shown financial documents.
all right, so, I'll sustain us any hearsay that might be a
Understood.
All right, next question.
Mr. Depp, when you arrived at the party, how did Ms. Heard greet you, if at all?
Very cold.
What did she say to you?
Not much.
Continuing drug use and allegations of physical and throwing things. We're going to take a pause. We're not going to let you miss any of this testimony. We'll be right back on the other side of a short break. Let's get you back inside this Virginia courtroom where court TV cameras are rather, and not only are you listening to direct examination of Johnny Depp, we are also showing you Amber Heard's expressions during that testimony. Back to the courtroom.
Not much, except occasionally she would tear herself from the conversation that she was in just to lean towards me. I was sitting to her right, and I would get a quick earful of, I can't believe you've done this to me on my birthday. I can't believe, I'm so embarrassed. You know, which I found odd because I'd kept her informed all day. And the last text that I'd received was a request for wine and marijuana. So when I got there and received that attitude, what could I do? So I just made the best of it and talked to her friends, and because they were all her friends except for, I believe, Nurse Erin. Erin was there, I believe.
What's Erin's last name?
Erin Borum, Nurse Erin, who had been the nurse assigned to Ms. Heard. So I just had conversations with the various people there. Her makeup artist, Melanie Iglesias, was there with her fella, and I remember speaking French with them. I didn't really eat, wasn't feeling it.
Did you have any drinks once you arrived at the birthday party?
Wine.
How many glasses?
I don't, maybe two, because they were like large, you know, the large sort of Bordeaux glasses. So, yeah, maybe two glasses of wine by the time it started to wind down.
How many drinks did you observe Ms. Heard consume after you arrived at the party?
I really couldn't say because all I saw was just she was drinking wine.
And did it seem to you that she had been drinking wine prior to your arrival?
I was sure, since I was an hour and 40 minutes late, that Ms. Heard was well into the wine before I got there, yes, certainly.
How did the party come to an end?
It was kind of, you know, one person would say, well, I better get out of here, and then two more couples or two more people would say, yeah, time to go. And then it just wound down. There was Mr. Drew, Miss Pennington, Whitney, possibly Whitney. And that was about it. It was sort of left there.
And what happened after the guests left the party?
She was free to commence with the usual verbal barrage, and at that point, there was so much in my head from the meeting. I thought it was a bit much that Miss Heard had. I'm sorry, it seemed quite brattish, it seemed quite childish that Miss Heard was holding such a grudge against me for having been late to her 30th birthday party when she knew very well, she was well informed that I was in an intense meeting that had a lot to do with not just my life and my future, but my children's. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if houses were going to start going away. I didn't. So it felt. I'm sure, of course, she felt something, but it felt unfair. It felt small, comparatively. If your loved one or your husband has had some very serious issues brought before him. So when she engaged in her normal kind of banter of trying to poke at me and get me to react, I literally just got into bed. I remember the television was on, and I was reading, and I suppose Miss Heard was down in her area taking off her makeup and changing into sleep clothes, whatever, and she entered the bedroom while I was laying on my side of the bed, reading, and she was still rattling off all the wrongs I'd done to her in that particular day, and how unreliable I am, and what a horrible person I was, and I did not engage verbally, nothing. I sat there or laid there, reading my book, and when she didn't get a jump out of me or a jolt out of me, she got out of bed. She walked around the bed. She came to my side, and again, you've got a person who is throwing multiple shots at your face, at your head, at your neck, at anything she could hit. So I got up out of bed, and I grabbed her by the shoulders, and I sat her down on the bed. And I said, I'm leaving. Please don't get off the bed. Please don't follow me. Please don't try and stop me. I'm leaving. And she got up off the bed, and she squared off at me in the doorway of our bedroom. And I said, what do you want to do? Hit me again? Would you like to hit me again? And I said, go ahead, hit me. Bam. And then I just said, is that what you wanted? Would you like another? Bam. there's the second one. And I said, good, now you're done. Grabbed her by the shoulders, walked her to the bed, sat her down, and said, don't follow me. Leave me alone. I'm out. I'm gone. I went, I grabbed a few things, and I got out immediately, and I went to my other house on Sweetser. As Ms. Heard she was leaving the following day for Coachella, which is Coachella is like it's a big event, a concert, you know, many bands, and yeah, out in the desert. She and her friends were going to Coachella for the weekend, and that was it. That was it.
Mr. Depp, after April 21st, 2016, when was the next time that you actually saw Ms. Heard in person?
Drugs, domestic violence, and Depp. Who will this jury believe? You're not going to miss any of Johnny Depp's testimony. We're going to take you right back into court after the break, right where we're leaving off.
Call now.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are continuing our live coverage. Court TV cameras are in the courtroom in Virginia for the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard defamation trial. They both have counts of defamation against the other. We continue our direct examination of Johnny Depp, day 2, and we have not missed any of his testimony. Let's go back live into that courtroom.
It was actually April, it was actually her birthday. It was 4:30 in the morning, April 22nd. And that's when I left. And from that moment on, I did not see Ms. Heard until May 21st.
And why was that?
I had received some news that was as absurd and grotesque and cruel. And then I was shown a picture of what the problem was. I had gone to Mr. Bett and said, she's at Coachella. I think it's a good time to go downtown so that I can get some of my things, you know, and get them out of there, especially the things that were precious to me, you know, children things from friends, Brando, Hunter, Thompson, whatever, things that were important to me. And he said, I don't think now's a good time to go. And I thought, it's the perfect time. She's not going to be home for 2 days. And then he showed me a photograph on his telephone of...
Objection, Your Honor. Also hearsay.
It's a photograph, Your Honor.
As being relayed to him by Mr. Bett.
He says he looked at it on his phone.
I'll rule the objection as the photograph.
What was the photograph of Mr. Depp?
It was a photograph of the bed, our bed, and on my side of the bed, was human fecal matter. So I understood why it wasn't a good time to go down there. My initial response to that was, I mean, I laughed. It was so outside It was so bizarre and so grotesque that I could only laugh. So I did not go down there that day.
Mr. Depp, how was your mother's health during this time?
Not good, not good at all. My mom was in Cedars-Sinai Hospital, and she was on her way out. She was dying.
How
She-
often were you going to see her during this time?
Excuse me?
How often were you going to see her during this time?
As much as I could under the circumstances. When I did go and get to see my mom, she was pretty much incapable of speech. Her speech had left her. At that time, she seemed to. Her eyes were still open, and she could kind of react with her eyes, but she couldn't speak. And then, not long after that, once her eyes closed, she lay there for the duration of her life, which ended on the 20th of May, the night before I saw Miss Heard for the last time. Well, essentially.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Depp, but how did your mother's death affect you?
As it would anyone, I suppose. There was one thing that I couldn't fathom was, I brought my kids to see Betty Sue in the hospital, and at that time she was not functioning. She was not responsive. She was alive still. She was fighting still inside, but she was lying in the bed, and what, excuse this analogy, but all I could think of was how if she's conscious if she's conscious of everything that's going on around her, but has no ability to speak, has no ability to move. I knew that the one thing, as far as Betty Sue was concerned, the last thing that she would have wanted was to have ended up lying there on a, what it was like, there's my mom lying there on a deli platter. And it was a horrible image. But I brought my kids in to say goodbye, and we all spoke into her ear. And then she passed away later. So it was painful, but there was some side of it too, at least to me, that in a way it was, I was happy for her.
Why was that?
Because I can't imagine Betty Sue or my mom. I can't imagine anyone lying there in quite possibly was a kind of a locked-in syndrome. And if she's surrounded by 10 people looking at her lying there in that, on that deli platter, if you will, I was happy for her that she was out of pain, out of frustration, out of... I was happy that she'd moved. Not happy, I was relieved that she was no longer in that situation. Though, when those you love leave, we're the ones stuck with the pain, with the grieving. But I was glad that my kids got to see her and give her send off, I suppose. And but it was it opened my eyes quite a lot to a number of things.
And what were some of those things that your mother's death opened your eyes to?
That life is a bird song. That what feels like 100 years is in fact a second, millisecond. Nobody can count those things, you know. So I had made peace with Betty Sue because I understood where she came from, and I understood how difficult her childhood was, and I understood that she had not had the proper training or proper teaching or the proper background to be anything other than what she had been when we were younger. I forgave her for all that, as one should. So I was, it opened my eyes to the fact that yes, if you try in relationships, whether friendships, whether courtships, whether marriage, whether this, whether that, try your best to try. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And more importantly, if you're going to get out of...
Some of the testimony that many have been waiting for. Johnny Depp just described when he learned of fecal matter left in his bed, allegedly, by Amber Heard. Can it get any worse? We're going to have to keep watching to find out. Johnny Depp's testimony will continue after a short break, and you will not miss any of it here on Court TV. Johnny Depp continuing to testify in a calm, somewhat monotone demeanor as he continues direct examination. Let's take you back to the courtroom. You've missed none of his testimony.
And which I had decided that it was, somebody had to call it, and I decided that I would call Amber and tell her that my mom had died that day. And then I very calmly said, look, I've made a decision and I think it's the best thing. I'm going to file for divorce, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to cite irreconcilable differences. I'm not going to cite any violence. I'm not going to, I'm going to state this. We simply, the two of us, we simply don't want to feel as though we have a collar around each other's neck and a leash attached to it, and then this piece of paper that proves that that's true. So what I thought was best was we want to end this in love and take the idea of ownership of one another out of the picture. And that's how I approached Miss Heard with that. And
So why did you go over to the penthouses on May 21st, 2016?
Miss Heard had requested that I come over to have a talk, to explain. She wanted to explain things, and so I went there. And I also wanted to gather up some of those things, precious things that you live with. So I went over there to have a discussion, what I thought would be calm understanding. And I figured she understood as well as I did that there was no way back. And I also felt that she would understand that it was the best thing for both of us, and there were there should have been nothing to fight over. It was clear. I had told her that I would take care of her and all that, and then she she was telling me about she brought up the situation of her fecal matter on the bed, and and she tried to blame it on the dogs. But
Why didn't you think it could have been the dogs?
The dogs they're teacup Yorkies. They weigh about 4 pounds each. The photograph that I saw, I mean, I lived with those dogs for many years. And so did Hilda Vargas. She's a woman who's been with me for 30 plus years, from the very beginning. And she was the one who photographed it. It was clear she knew the dogs as well as I did. And none of that did not come from a dog. It just didn't.
Mr. Depp, could we back up a little bit? Who went over to the penthouses with you on May 21st?
I went to the penthouses with Jerry Judge and Sean Bett. And I had asked them on the just in case, please pay particular attention and stay as close to the door, stay at the door, or if you got a split, come back quick. If they went down to the security shack or whatever it was, don't linger, get back. Because if you hear anything, if you hear screaming, you gotta get in there. So leave the door unlocked and spring in there if you hear something.
Why did you want them to be able to get into the penthouse quickly if they heard anything?
Just based on my past experiences with Miss Heard, when when you say something that she either didn't agree with or swore up and down that it was a complete falsity and there was something wrong with me, I'm crazy, and you know, the escalation. If anything was going to start to escalate, I did not want to be there. So I had them waiting by the door to get in there in case anything went down.
So when you walked into the penthouse, what did you see?
When I first walked into the penthouses, you walk in and then make a left, and then you're in the kitchen area, and then beyond that was the living room. I saw Miss Heard sitting there on the couch, and I went over to talk. I went and sat down on the couch. She was sitting on, the couch was kind of a, you know, a square, or a half square, you know. She was sitting on one side of the couch, I was sitting on the other. That's when she was trying to explain a few things about Coachella, and then the fecal delivery, and saying that it was the dogs. And I'm sorry, I could not agree with her. I'd lived with those dogs. I picked up their fun. It was not the dogs. And so what happened was, I said, let's call Kevin Murphy.
Who's Kevin Murphy?
Kevin Murphy had been, he was in Los Angeles. He was the house manager over the places in West Hollywood, and he was also taking care of the penthouses downtown, if any work needed to be done or this or that.
Who thought we'd hear this much testimony about fecal matter on Johnny Depp's bed, accusing Amber Heard of being the one that did it and put it there? So we're going to have to watch and see what happens. You'll be right back. A programming note for your consideration. Court TV's Michael Ayala will bring you a special hour of testimony of the day from the Depp-Heard defamation trial to get you caught up on all the best moments from the trial on a special hour starting at 7 p.m. Good Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. Of course, my honor to be with you. We want to take you back into the courtroom in Virginia, where Court TV cameras have been bringing you the defamation trial of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Johnny Depp is on day 2 of direct examination by his own attorneys. We're going to take you right back into that courtroom. You've missed none of his testimony.
Scheduled the girls who come in, the ladies like Hilda, to do their work. And he'd had a conversation with Ms. Heard.
Hearsay, Your Honor.
Let's move beyond the
All right, let's
conversation
move on.
that Kevin Murphy had with Ms. Heard. So after you called Kevin Murphy, what happened?
I asked Kevin if Amber and he had spoken about the incident. He said, yes, they had. Okay. And it appears that Ms. Heard had told...
Hearsay, Your Honor.
I'm not sure.
This is apparently a statement by Ms. Heard.
That he heard from Kevin Murphy. That's what the testimony is.
All right, if you want to reframe that, that's fine.
Okay. After you when did you hang up the phone with Kevin Murphy?
Right about the time that Ms. Heard was screaming obscenities at him and calling him a liar, and that he was don't speak to this man that way. Do not disrespect this man in that way. And then Kevin Murphy just hung up. And so at that point, she was riled, of course. And I went upstairs to gather belongings. When I came back downstairs, she was on the phone with Io Tillett Wright, and they were making a wonderful point of just how funny it was that I thought that some human being had actually dropped a grumpy, pardon the term, onto the bed, and they were yucking it up. They were laughing about the whole thing, and it was, you know, it was a tough couple of days, and I really didn't feel like I deserved that kind of treatment. And I went over and I said, let me talk to her. I grabbed the phone and I said to Io, you can have her now. She's yours. She's all yours. Right? And then I took the phone and I just banged like that onto that side of the couch was 8 feet long. The other side of the couch was about 6 feet long. I flopped it onto the couch, and I was walking towards the kitchen to exit, and then suddenly Rocky Pennington ran in to the penthouse and started, you know, leave her alone, Johnny, leave her alone. And I was by the refrigerator at this point. I was 20 feet away.
Where was Miss Heard at that time?
She was still sitting on the couch. And that's when the screaming, you know, the screaming started with, like, again, I'm 20 feet away. She's still got Io on the phone. She's got Rocky there. Stop hitting me, Johnny, she's screaming. In her best freaked out, upset voice, high-pitched. Stop hitting me, stop hitting me. Jerry Judge and Sean Bett entered the room. And as they entered the room, and she was quite surprised to see them, she said, that's the last time you'll ever hit me. That's the last time you'll ever do that to me. And again, I'm a good 20 feet away by the fridge. And then Jerry said, boss, I think we should just leave. And then we left. That was the last time I saw Miss Heard until she asked me to break the restraining order. Or not break the restraining order, break the restraining order and talk to her in July later.
Mr. Depp, where did you go after you left the penthouses on May 21st?
I went home.
To which home?
Oh, to Sweetser.
And then where did you go? Where did you go after you went home to Sweetser?
I was due to. I had to go to. I had to catch a flight to New York, where we were doing. This group, the Hollywood Vampires. We were about to set out on a 2 or 3 month tour of Europe, and we were rehearsing in New York, and then we played one show in New York as a warm-up gig, and then we were on the plane, and we started the shows in in Europe. And I was on the road from then, which was May, through July, August or something.
Ms. Myers, is this a good time to take our afternoon break?
I was just going to suggest that. Thank you,
Good.
Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and take our afternoon break, ladies and gentlemen. Please do not do any outside research and do not discuss the case.
An afternoon break while the court is adjourning. Let's bring in our guest legal analyst with us today, criminal defense attorney Marie Pereira. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell me, first of all, your initial impression of the testimony of Johnny Depp under direct.
I find him to be doing extremely well. I know everyone is saying he's moving along like a turtle. I think another guest earlier said it was like a boredom show. I disagree. I think he's being very, very relatable. And I think he's chronologically explaining what happened. And he wants the jury to see him as a human being. And he's really gaining their empathy.
Yeah, Marie, I look at social media during the show even sometimes to see how viewers are watching this, and many viewers have said the same, which is, I believe him. So I know that you're a domestic violence expert. Do you believe Johnny Depp as he's outlining things that he says happened?
I believe him completely, that he is a victim of intimate partner violence. I believe that it was mutual, and I believe most oftentimes he was trying to prevent her from hurting him. I think he's driving it home, and I think it is really bringing out the fact that men can be victims of domestic violence also. It is sort of, frowned upon and it's underreported, but I think in today's culture, it's being accepted more and more.
And I think too, Marie, to your point of that it's both ways, I mean, what do you do at the end of the day if it is both ways? What advice do you give victims of domestic violence on what they can do if they find themselves in these circumstances?
I think they should try to do what Mr. Depp apparently is testifying he tried to do, to remove yourself from the situation. But when you're with a partner that is not allowing you to leave the room, it is extremely difficult. I'm surprised that he didn't ask for a divorce a long time ago. And I absolutely believe his account of everything that happened.
All right, Marie, you're going to stay with us. I appreciate your expertise. The court is coming back from a break. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take you back into the courtroom for more testimony from Johnny Depp.
Now.
Johnny Depp has now been talking about the darker aspects of his relationship with Amber Heard. The jury is back from a break-in in the courtroom. Let's go back.
All right, thank you. All right, your next question, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you another audio recording that is Plaintiff's Exhibit 397. And for the record, we intend to play the portion that is 1 hour, 4 seconds to 1 hour, 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
All right, so there's no objection to 397 coming into evidence its entirety? Okay, audios are coming in. It's 397 in evidence, and then you want to play that part. That's fine.
I wish I had known that.
Well, those wishes don't come true.
Oh, sorry. I'll write you a check for the extra sip I took. Is that You did. You said don't drink my wine. That's mine.
I didn't say that.
Oh, you didn't?
I said I didn't think you were looking for any more.
Rewind. Rewind.
Probably defended me pretty good in front of your Rocky and your pop and your mom.
Hope one day teach your son how to be man. You're so good at it. Fantastic. Excellent.
You?
You're never gonna learn it. Out to God. Out to God. Jack's stepfather teaches him more about the
Like in London that you decide. Never again. Stay away. You don't exist. You will not be getting my words.
Mr. Depp, could you please describe to the jury what they just heard in that audio recording?
I don't know when. I don't know when that. If there's a date on that, but clearly there was some animosity and another clash, and misheard once again. Felt it necessary to bring my kids, my son into that argument and say that she hopes that my son's stepfather can teach him how to be a man, since I couldn't. And I believe she says something about more man in the stepfather than would be existing in my, I believe the term was left nut.
How often did Ms. Heard bring your children into your arguments?
Too often.
And at the end of your relationship, how was Ms. Heard's relationship with your children?
Non-existent. My children, my kids are far more intelligent than I am, and they broke. They wouldn't be around Ms. Heard they refused to be around her anymore. They didn't like the way she treated me, which was written in a very elegant letter by my daughter, actually, to Ms. Heard. I don't know if that's in evidence, but I remember my daughter sent a text to Ms. Heard.
Objection, Your Honor. Just hearsay. It's one thing for the witness to tell his story. It's another thing for him to tell other people's stories.
All right.
We can move
We can
on.
move on. Okay.
I'm sorry, I read the email.
Yeah, I understand. Next question.
When did you learn that Ms. Heard had filed for divorce?
Well, it was let's see, Betty Sue was the 20th. That night I spoke to her about the divorce. 21st was the kicker. I believe it was on the 23rd, and I had already left town for New York to prepare for the tour.
Did Ms. Heard know that you were out of town at that time?
I don't know.
When did you learn that Ms. Heard had made domestic abuse allegations against you?
The 27th of May, which is, in fact, my daughter's birthday, I saw that she had gone to a court, I don't know, some court, and there were paparazzi everywhere, and her and a brown mark on her face. And it was also happened to be the day that Alice in Wonderland 2, through the Looking Glass was opening. And that's the day that she chose to get the, go to the courthouse and get a TRO, a temporary restraining order against me. But I was in Europe already at that point.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you what's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 487. And just for the record, this is a very long document, and we will be showing pages 492 through 494.
There's no objection to the document 487?
Your Honor, if I could just have a minute or two to scroll through it, that'd be great, please.
Okay. I assume, are you entering this in evidence now, or are you just showing it?
I can give them an opportunity
Okay,
and go
sure.
through it with Mr. Depp, if that's okay. Mr. Depp, do you recognize any of these text messages that are on the screen in front of you?
Vague memory of these.
And who were these communications between?
It looks like myself in the, it's me, in the green, and Ms. Heard's words in the blue.
And do your communications reflect that Ms. Heard understands that you're in New York?
I'm sorry?
What is the date of your text messages here on this page?
That's the 23rd of May, 2016. And hers are the 24th of May, 2016.
And based off of these communications, does this refresh your recollection that Ms. Heard knew that you were in New York on this date?
In her text, when do you leave? What was clear that I was leaving right away, but I'm not sure that I wasn't already, because I wasn't in New York City. We weren't playing New York City. We were playing. We were rehearsing in a like a casino, a big casino, and that was where we did our first show first show to practice for the the tour, the European tour. So I don't know.
We do need to take a break. You won't miss any of the testimony. We'll take you right back into the courtroom when we come back. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. Happy to have you with us. We have been providing this coverage with Court TV cameras in the courtroom in Virginia. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Johnny Depp, day 2 of direct examination. You haven't missed a thing. Let's take you back in the courtroom.
Either leaving for New York, but I think I was already there because New York City, we weren't, I don't recall that we were playing New York City. So maybe I was suggesting going there. I don't know.
Could we please turn to page 494? And Mr. Depp, do you see the text message from Ms. Heard on May 24th, 2016 at 6:33?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay. And do you understand what Ms. Heard is referring to in this text message?
Is it all right if I just take a quick glance?
Please do.
Thank you. Thank you. That's better. Oh. I remember, yes. I recall this.
And what do you recall about this?
That it made no sense to me. It just didn't make any sense to me, especially about, well, as long as you don't file, nobody will know. It just didn't, again, I'm not all that familiar with these types of things, but if it's two people in a relationship and the relationship is ending, in any case, the outcome is divorce. So I didn't understand these explanations of this can happen or it cannot happen, and I only did this because my lawyers said to, and it just didn't make any sense to me, and it looked like she was kind of grabbing at straws, trying to figure out what, in fact, to do.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to just ask you about a couple statements Ms. Heard makes in this text message. She first says, just confirm that the cover letter is completely private and has nothing to do with any public record. Do you see that? It's the first sentence in the text message.
Yes, I do.
Do you know what cover letter Ms. Heard is referring to?
No, I don't.
Okay. And then she says, and only included the domestic violence / restraining order stuff because I called the lawyer when the cops were here and I didn't know what to do or why that happened and was scared. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you know what Ms. Heard is referring to when she said that?
No.
And then dropping down to the bottom, it says 2 lines up, I thought you filed. Do you see that?
Yes.
And do you have any understanding as to why Ms. Heard thought you had already filed?
No. I had on the night of the 20th was when I told her on the phone that I was going to file. for divorce, and in the way that I had explained it, to keep everything nice and calm and even. But on the 23rd, she filed, and so I hadn't had a chance to file.
Your Honor, I would move Plaintiff's Exhibit 487, specifically the portions from page 492 to 494 into evidence.
So you just want page 492 to 494? in
Yes,
evidence?
Your Honor, it's a 700-page document, so
Just page 4, well, are you going to ever put more of 487 in, I guess is the question.
I believe so, Your
So
Honor.
this is 487A?
Certainly, that would make sense.
Okay, so 487A, page 492 to 494. Any objection to those two pages?
No, Your Honor.
All right, those two pages are in
Is it,
evidence.
just for clarity, is that two pages or 3 pages? Is it 492?
490, that would be 3 pages, if that's
No.
correct.
That's correct.
Okay, 492 to 494, okay.
And could that please be published to the jury? Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard did end up seeking a temporary restraining order against you, correct?
Yes, she did.
And what, I believe you already said this, but could you just remind the jury, what date was that?
The 27th of May.
And where were you when you learned that Ms. Heard had actually filed a temporary restraining order against you?
I don't recall if we had left for Europe as yet. That is the Hollywood Vampires for the tour. So I was either in New York State rehearsing and preparing to go to Europe, or I was already in Europe. I'd have to check the the tour dates.
Did you find out on the 27th or shortly thereafter?
No, I found out on the 27th. It was everywhere.
And what do you mean when you say it was everywhere?
It was multiplying and multiplying and multiplying throughout media, throughout social media, throughout so-called sort of straight media or whatever. And I was taken aback a bit.
If we could take this down and please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 411. Mr. Depp, is this some of the media coverage that you were referring to?
Many things of this nature, yes. Many.
And do you recall actually seeing this specific article?
I don't remember seeing this specific article, but there were already plenty, and certainly more than I was happy to go through. I think once you read one or two of them, the general idea is I mean, the point had been made clearly.
Your Honor, I'd move Plaintiff's Exhibit 411 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 411 in evidence.
Could we please take this down and pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 414? Mr. Depp,
Yes.
do you recognize this article at all?
I remember. Yeah, I don't know if it was this one in particular, but I do remember seeing all the various reasons behind her reasons behind her needing to get a temporary restraining order, a TRO against me, which they just started to metastasize into these. There were abuse allegations, and then there was alcohol, and then there was drugs and violence, and it just it was already right then and there before my eyes spinning out of control. And there was not a word that I could say.
Your Honor, I would move Plaintiff's Exhibit 414 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 414 in evidence.
Johnny Depp, in his own words, detailing when Amber Heard took a restraining order out against him. Do you find Johnny Depp credible? Let us know on all the social media. We have to squeeze in a break. When we come back, you will not miss any of his testimony. We'll take you back into that Virginia courtroom.
No better.
Let's get you back to court in Virginia in the defamation trial of two A-listers in Hollywood. Johnny Depp on the stand, direct examination. He's now talking about allegations Amber Heard has made against him of violence.
And if we could take this down now, please, and put up Plaintiff's Exhibit 409. And, Your Honor, if I could move Plaintiff's Exhibit 409 into evidence as well.
Any objection with 409?
No objection.
All right, 409 in evidence. Thank you.
Mr. Depp, do you recall seeing this People magazine article?
Yes, I do.
And when did you see it?
Right when it was released, right when it came out.
Did you speak to anyone about this article?
Yes, I did.
Who did you speak to?
Mostly friends and my sister Christy, mostly friends, and certainly the band. And my kids. I had to alert them that there might be some ugly things coming out that were most assuredly going to put me in the position of some violent, drug-addled, alcoholic, just reprobate. and I wanted to warn them before they were approached with the People magazine cover in school by other kids, you know. I wanted to be able to explain to them that this was going to be visible and it's going to be everywhere, and I apologize to them that this was happening.
Had you ever been accused of physically abusing a woman before this point?
No. No.
How would you describe the impact of these allegations at the time they were made? And Arnold, if you could please take this down.
I felt ill. I felt sick. I mean, sick in a sense that there was no truth in it. There was no truth in it whatsoever. And the fact that it was coming down on me so hard and so quickly, and how it gained momentum around the world. And then you notice people looking at you differently. And then you notice calls stop coming from agents and producers and that sort of thing. This was before, in fact, the Me Too movement had come around. This was a while before that, so I couldn't have expected the Me Too movement to happen, but once that happened, then it just went into skyrocket mode. So you're showered with you know, you're running between drops of lava. You're trying to run between raindrops that kill you and destroy you. So I was very confused. I was very hurt because, as I said before, when you're in a relationship and you do give your truth to intimate truths to that person that you're with, and then they start to use all that information and stretch it out into something that is completely shocking, because as I said, it just didn't happen. And so I felt like it was incredibly cruel and treachery. I felt it was treachery. It was I don't know if she wanted me to just be erased or drop dead or just let me stick around and allow her to ruin my life for a while and go out of her way to shame me and hurt my kids and hurt people who I've known for many, many years. No, it was, I mean, to say that it was unfair is about the largest understatement that it's actually the smallest understatement. I mean, it controlled my.
Still with me, criminal defense attorney Marie Pereira. Marie, let's talk about Amber Heard, because the jury is watching both of these individuals. What takeaways, if any, do you have from the demeanor and appearance of Amber Heard during this testimony?
You know what? It's interesting you should ask that. I was just thinking about it. And I said to myself, if someone said that I threw a vodka bottle at them, it exploded on the edge of a bar, severed his finger, and then while he was in shock and in pain, I took a cigarette and burnt it on his face, I think I would have jumped up and said, "You're lying, you're lying." The fact that she's sitting there listening to it makes me feel like, okay, you did that. That's what I'm getting away from it.
And Marie, you know, did you notice she was very stoic during a lot of the testimony? They came back from break and she was writing to her attorney. Don't know what that means, but that jury is watching both of them. You know that as well as I do. Thank you, Marie, so much for all your expertise, for joining us today on Court TV. A programming note, Michael Ayala is up next, my esteemed colleague, to bring you special hour of testimony as well as continuing live testimony in this case.
Hello and welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's day 2 of stunning testimony from Johnny Depp. Depp details his addictions, his injuries sustained after a violent fight with his ex-wife Amber Heard, and even tells tales about his most well-known character, Captain Jack Sparrow.
Cartoon characters can get away with things we can't. Captain Jack Sparrow can do things that I could never do. He could say things that I could never say. So it was for me a way to stretch the parameters of a character and take a risk. The character of Captain Jack was more. He was more like a swashbuckler type that would kind of swing in shirtless and, you know, be the hero. And I had quite different ideas about the character, so I incorporated my notes into the character and brought that character to life, much to the chagrin of Disney.
Who doesn't love Captain Jack Sparrow? Now, it has the feel of a Johnny Depp redemption tour. Depp telling his story, and it took up the entire day, the Hollywood icon addressing allegations that he abused his ex-wife Amber Heard. And from all accounts, the gallery was hanging on his every word, but it's not the gallery that matters, it is the jury. How will they consider his testimony? The actor was candid about his addictions. He talked openly about his volatile relationship with Heard and went into detail about how and when their relationship took a dark turn. And after struggling to remember the exact date, Depp also detailed the pair's wedding day, a day he says was filled with drugs. And at one point, Depp compared his relationship with Heard to that of his abusive mother.
I was sort of not allowed to be right, not allowed to have a voice. So at a certain point, when what enters your mind is you start to slowly realize that you are in a relationship with your mother, in a sense. And I know that sounds perverse and obtuse, but the fact is that some people search for weaknesses in people.
All right, sit back, relax, get your popcorn. We have much more of Depp ahead on that stand, so I want to get you right back into the courtroom now for more of his testimony. Let's go.
Second from the moment that I woke up until the moment that I dropped, even on the road, playing shows, you'd go out and you'd play for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and you'd do your best to get through that. And I can remember getting off of finishing the show, getting on the bus with the other band members, and just going to the back of the bus and just you know, you had to get it out. So I just sat back and in the back of the bus and cried and hid it from people.
Mr. Depp, did you ever discuss Ms. Heard's domestic abuse allegations with any producers or directors in the movie industry?
Only if they fell into the category of friends. For example, Tim Burton, who was one of my dearest friends, and I've known him since we made Edward Scissorhands together in 1990. And we've been very, very, very close friends ever since then. Yeah, just friends, you know. And then, of course, as we were on the road, you know, the fellas in the band, you know, Alice Cooper is the singer of the Vampires, who's a dear friend, and Joe Perry from Aerosmith is in the band, and he's also a dear friend. And then a couple of the other members are just yeah, very close friends. And I was bereft of any. You just don't know what to say anymore. You just know what to. So I tried not to talk about it very much at all. But just to friends.
Mr. Depp, when did you and Ms. Heard divorce?
When was the divorce final?
Yes.
The divorce was final January 2017 on Friday the 13th.
And how were your divorce proceedings resolved ultimately?
My team of lawyers, which included two of my entertainment lawyers, a divorce attorney, and two more attorneys that were on, Blair Burke and someone else. I wanted to, for lack of a better word, I wanted to fight it. I wanted to fight it because it was there, because there wasn't an ounce, not a grain, not a molecule of truth to it. So I wanted to fight it.
Calls for hearsay, Your Honor.
All right.
He was speaking about what he wanted to do in the context of the divorce.
I understand.
He had finished doing
I think the
that.
next one was going to be they said. I don't know. Something like that was fine. So
Okay,
you can go to your next question.
sure, certainly. Did you pay Ms. Heard any money in connection with your divorce?
Yes.
And how much was that?
Her settlement, she wanted $7 million. I believe that was the settlement, wasn't it? Yes, $7 million.
And was there a joint statement that you and Ms. Heard released?
Yes, that's where I was getting. The advice that I was given was not to fight.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
All right. I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Who wrote the joint statement?
I have no idea. Lawyers.
did you approve the joint statement before it was issued?
I'll put it this way, I wasn't given much of a choice.
Could we please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 408? And Mr. Depp, do you see the second paragraph from the bottom of this page? Is that the joint statement that you and Ms. Heard released together?
That's the joint statement that was released, yes.
And could you please read that joint statement for the jury?
Our relationship is intensely passionate and at times volatile, but always bound by love. Neither party has made false accusations for financial gain. There was never any intent of physical or emotional harm. Amber wishes the best for Johnny in the future. Amber will be donating financial proceeds from the divorce to a charity.
What happened after this joint statement was issued, Mr. Depp?
What happened after that? I suppose, you know, the next move was to start making payments to Ms. Heard. There were scheduled payments, and then at a certain point, Ms. Heard had made statements to the press saying that the $7 million was going to be, the $7 million was the settlement, and that $7 million was going to be split up between two charities. One was the ACLU, and the other was the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, which, in fact, was a breach of the agreement. Neither one of us were supposed to speak about details, money, anything of that nature. So when Ms. Heard breached that agreement, that was when I asked Ed White, my business manager, to send the first payments directly to the charities in Ms. Heard's name. And after I did that, Ms. Heard was very, very angry that I had made those first payments, and she went into a kind of a tirade about how I should be charged double the 7. I should be charged $14 million, so that because she thought that I was looking for a tax break.
All right, a little breakdown there of that relationship, a little peek behind the curtain of a celebrity divorce, that cute little statement we thought was put together by them. Johnny Depp says it was all put together by attorneys, and he had no choice but to agree with it. All right, we're going to take a break, get you back into the courtroom right where we left off. When we come back, keep it right here on Court TV.
Guilt.com today.
Hello, Hello and welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. We continue with our coverage from Fairfax, Virginia, of the dueling defamation suits between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And Johnny Depp has been on the stand now for the better part of 2 days. And basically, he's been taking this jury, with the help of his attorney, through a series of incidents and claims by Amber Heard of abuse on his part, and basically denying any involvement at all in terms of abuse on Amber Heard. As we go back into the courtroom now, we're going to pick up right where we left off, and he'll begin discussions now about the release of that op-ed, which is really at the center of this entire trial. Let's get back into the courtroom.
The time that the joint statement was released and the time that the op-ed came out, how many movies did you work on in that time period, if you can recall?
When did the joint statement come out? Was it, I'm sorry.
Could we scroll up, please? I'll withdraw the question for the moment. In the time leading from the divorce through the, in the time period between when your divorce was finalized and the release of the op-ed in December 2018, do you have an estimate as to how many television or movie projects you worked on?
I don't exactly. I believe there was another, maybe a smaller tour with the vampires, and I can't. I don't remember. It's hard to remember. I've done too many movies.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Your Honor, I apologize. Can we please move into evidence exhibit 408?
All right, any objection to 408?
Yes, Your Honor, I think we don't have any objection to the joint statement that was read, but the rest of the article contains hearsay statements that we can redact.
We can redact that in and put it in
So you
tomorrow.
only have redacted 408 with just the statement then? Is that what you're talking about?
Just that second to last
Okay.
paragraph.
All right. That statement will be in evidence once we get it redacted. Okay.
All right, thank you. If we could please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 1. Mr. Depp, do you recognize this document?
Excuse me. Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is Ms. Heard's op-ed for the Washington Post that I believe came out in December of 18. I recognize, yes, I certainly remember this.
And have you actually read this op-ed?
Yes, I have.
And what do you think of it, its contents?
Well, it was a hell of a start, I'd say, in terms of the title. If you could, can we scroll down a little bit, just for a second? Because I'd like to make a point. Reading it and reading the words that she had written about what was obviously it was obviously referring to our relationship. It was obviously referring to me 2 years ago. It all matched up, and so it was clearly about me. And then I read the rest of the article where she talks about, if you could go down, scroll down just a little bit. after the imagine a powerful man as a ship thing. Because she goes into, she talks about, in this section of the piece, she talks about the plight of women, not just in Hollywood, but in general in the world. And there were many things that I did not disagree with in terms of this part of the article. I understand anyone's passion to right the wrongs that have been done for countless years against any being who's suffered at the hands of domestic violence, be it women, men, children. That's something, of course, coming from my background, that I am very, very against any bullying of any human being, any forced violence, any injustice committed against any human being. So all this part of the article was strangely, I understood it very well, and I can applaud some of this. I can absolutely say that I believe that it was very well done with regard to violence against women or violence against anyone. It just seemed kind of a strange other side, like a two-headed coin.
Mr. Depp, did you experience any consequences after the release of the op-ed?
Absolutely.
And what were
Yes.
those?
Oh, well, I believe it was, I don't think it took Disney very long, maybe a couple of days, to announce that I had been removed from the Pirates of the Caribbean films franchise, which I learned about reading in reading one of these type of, some magazine, or the article where Sean Bailey.
Johnny Depp talking about the consequences of the op-ed article written by Amber Heard back in 2018. We'll have more of his testimony when we come back. Keep it right here on Court TV.
.com.
Hello and welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. We'll continue now with our coverage of the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp dueling defamation suits. Now remember, there are two parts to Johnny's suit. First, he has to show that in fact Amber Heard lied with her 2018 op-ed in the Washington Post, and that she did so with malice or with reckless disregard for the truth, but also that it caused him damages. And that's what he's beginning to testify about now. So let's get back into that courtroom for more of the testimony of Johnny Depp.
Very odd to me, as I have had many creative conversations with the Disney people, even to the point of where they were asking me to come back and write Pirates Sorry.
What Disney executives told him is hearsay.
We can move on.
If you want to just restart.
So, I see.
Go ahead.
So I can read it out of someone's article, but not from the man's mouth. Is that what happens?
Next question.
Mr. Depp, what to your understanding is the status of Pirates 6?
At this point,
Yes.
I believe it's in dangle mode.
Mr. Depp, have you ever physically assaulted Miss Heard?
Never.
Have you ever sexually assaulted Miss Heard?
Never. Certainly not.
What have you lost as a result of Miss Heard making these allegations against you?
Nothing less than everything. Nothing less than everything. Because when the allegations were made, when the allegations were rapidly circling the globe, telling people that I was a drunken, cocaine-fueled menace who beat women suddenly in my 50s. It's over. You know, you're done. So, what did it do to me? What effect did it have on me? I'll put it to you this way. No matter the outcome of this trial, the second the allegations were made against me, the accusations, the second that more and more of these things, as I said, metastasized and turned into fodder for the media. Once that happens, or once that happened, I lost then. That is to say, I lost because that is not a thing that anyone is gonna just put on your back for a short period of time. I will live with that for the rest of my life because of the allegations and because it was such a high-profile case. So I lost then, no matter the outcome of this trial. I'll carry that for the rest of my days. And it never had to be that way. It never had to happen. And I don't quite understand why it did in the way that it did.